The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with excited chatter as representatives from across the known galaxy gathered for the most anticipated meeting in centuries. The discovery of a new intelligent species always caused a stir, but this one was particularly amusing to the assembled aliens. Commander Zeth of the Korthani Empire adjusted his crystalline exoskeleton and leaned forward in his seat. His species had dominated space travel for over 10,000 years, and he took great pride in being among the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Around him sat the other major powers, the ethereal voidlings who could phase through matter, the massive Titan breed with their stone-like skin, and the insectoid hive queens with their collective consciousness. So, Zeth's voice resonated through his translator device. These humans still use chemical propulsion to barely escape their own gravity well? High Counselor Nexara of the Voidlings flickered between dimensions as she laughed. Worse than that. Our scouts report they're still fighting wars over patches of dirt on their single planet. They haven't even colonized their own star system properly. The gathered representatives erupted in laughter. It had been 300 years since the last primitive species was discovered, and those had at least managed basic fusion technology. These humans were still burning fossil fuels and splitting atoms like children playing with fire. Queen Mother Zis of the Hive clicked her mandibles in amusement. The preliminary reports are quite entertaining. They have over 200 separate governments on one small world. They can't even agree on basic cooperation among their own kind. Ambassador Threx, a slug-like being from the Mollusk Confederation, oozed forward slightly. Perhaps we should simply ignore them. In another 1,000 years, they'll either evolve or destroy themselves. Why waste council resources? But Zeth had different ideas. The Korthani had always enjoyed demonstrating their superiority over lesser species. I propose we make formal contact. These humans could provide entertainment, perhaps even serve as a cautionary tale for other developing worlds. The council murmured agreement. After all, what harm could such a primitive species pose? Their most advanced spacecraft could barely reach their own moon, while the Korthani could cross galaxies in mere days through their mastery of space-time manipulation. Very well, declared Supreme Chancellor Morgoth, the ancient ruler of the ethereal conclave. Who volunteers for this diplomatic mission? Zeth's crystals glowed brighter with anticipation. The Korthani Empire would be honored to make first contact. We'll show these humans their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. 3 weeks later, Zeth's massive dreadnought, the Star Crusher, emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ship was a masterwork of Korthani engineering, 5 kilometers long, equipped with weapons that could shatter moons, and powered by contained black holes. It was designed to impress and intimidate. The human response was immediate but laughably inadequate. Their crude radio signals filled the void, carrying what the translation systems identified as everything from scientific greetings to military threats. Zeth watched their primitive detection systems scramble to track his ship's movement. Sir, reported his sensor officer, the humans are launching several small craft toward our position. Their propulsion appears to be chemical rockets. Zeth's laugh echoed through the bridge. Chemical rockets! Do they plan to throw stones at us next? The bridge crew joined in the amusement. Here was a species that thought launching tiny metal, cans filled with explosives, constituted space warfare. The human delegation arrived aboard, what they called the International Space Station, tiny collection of metal tubes that barely qualified as a space habitat. Zeth had expected their representatives to be equally primitive. But when the airlocks opened, he was mildly surprised. The lead human, introduced as Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the United Earth Space Consortium, stepped forward with remarkable composure. Despite facing beings that could destroy her entire world, she showed no fear. Her dark eyes held intelligence, and when she spoke, her words were carefully chosen. Welcome to our solar system, she said simply. We are honored by your visit. Zeth had expected groveling or panic. This calm dignity was unexpected but ultimately irrelevant. I am Commander Zeth of the Korthani Empire, representing the Galactic Council. We have come to formally evaluate your species for potential membership in galactic civilization. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. We understand. What would this evaluation involve? A demonstration of your technological capabilities, your social development, and your potential contribution to galactic society, Zeth replied, his tone making it clear he expected very little. Though I must warn you, the standards are quite high. Most species require several millennia of advancement before they're considered ready. Of course, Dr. Chen said. Would you be willing to visit our planet for a more comprehensive demonstration? Zeth considered this. A visit to their homeworld would certainly provide amusing stories to share with the Council. Very well. But I warn you, do not attempt any deception. Our sensors can detect any primitive weapons or tricks you might consider. Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral. We would expect nothing less from such an advanced civilization. However, I should mention that some of our historical sites might seem unusual to visitors. Earth has a very long history. How long could the history of such a young species possibly be? Zeth scoffed. You've barely discovered spaceflight? Indeed, Dr. Chen replied quietly. Perhaps you'll find our perspective on time interesting. As Zeth's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, he admired the planet's natural beauty while noting the obvious signs of a primitive civilization. Cities sprawled across continents connected by simple roads and railways. Orbital installations were few and basic. This was clearly a species in its technological infancy. But as they flew over certain regions, his sensors began picking up anomalies. Deep beneath the ocean floors, there were structures that didn't match human architectural patterns. In remote mountain ranges, energy signatures suggested technology far more advanced than anything humans should possess. What are those readings? He asked Dr. Chen. She looked out the window at the passing landscape. Oh, those. We call them archaeological sites. Very old, some of our predecessor civilizations left interesting artifacts behind. Predecessor civilizations? Zeth's interest was piqued. You mean other species evolved on this world before you? Dr. Chen's smile was enigmatic. Something like that. You'll see soon enough, Commander. We're almost at the first site I wanted to show you. The shuttle touched down in what Dr. Chen called the Sahara Desert, far from any major human settlement. Zeth stepped out onto the sandy surface, his environmental suit automatically adjusting to the planet's atmosphere. The heat was intense, but nothing his advanced technology couldn't handle. This is what you wanted to show me? Zeth gestured at the endless expanse of sand dunes. An empty wasteland? Dr. Chen smiled and pulled out a small device that looked surprisingly sophisticated for human technology. Not empty, Commander. Just buried. She pressed a button and the ground beneath their feet began to hum with energy. Zeth's sensors immediately went wild. Power readings spiked to levels that shouldn't be possible with human technology. The sand around them started to shift and move, as if something massive was rising from deep underground. What kind of trick is this? Zeth demanded, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon. No trick, Dr. Chen replied calmly. Just archaeology. The sand fell away to reveal a structure that made Zeth's crystalline form tremble. Rising from the desert floor was a complex of buildings that stretched for kilometers in every direction. The architecture was impossible, flowing curves that seemed to bend space itself, materials that his sensors couldn't identify, and an energy signature that dwarfed anything in the Korthani Empire. But what truly shocked Zeth was the familiarity of the design. These weren't human buildings. They matched architectural patterns found in ancient ruins across the galaxy. Ruins that predated every known civilization by millions of years. This is impossible, Zeth whispered. These structures, they're first one's architecture, but the first ones vanished before any current species evolved. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. The first ones, is that what you call them? We have different names for the various periods of our development, but yes, this site is quite ancient. Your development? Zeth turned to stare at the human woman. These buildings are older than recorded galactic history. No primitive species could have built them. Who said we were primitive? Dr. Chen asked quietly. Before Zeth could respond, his communication device chimed urgently. The voice of his ship's science officer crackled through. Commander, you need to see this. Our deep scans of the planet are revealing massive structures everywhere. Underground cities, orbital platforms cloaked beyond our detection capabilities, energy networks that span continents. Sir, this isn't a primitive world. It's the most advanced planet we've ever encountered. Zeth felt his certainty crumbling. But your space program? Your chemical rockets? Dr. Chen gestured toward the ancient complex. A choice, not a limitation. When you've mastered space-time manipulation millions of years ago, chemical rockets become quaint, like riding horses when you own hover cars. Sometimes the old ways have their charm. They walked deeper into the complex, passing through corridors that defied physics. Gravity shifted and changed direction, allowing them to walk on walls and ceilings as easily as floors. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with soft light that responded to their presence. "Your empire," Dr. Chen said conversationally. "The Korthani. You've been spacefaring for about 10,000 years, correct?" "Yes," Zeth answered automatically, still trying to process what he was seeing. "We were among the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel." "Interesting. Do you know where your FTL technology originally came from?" Zeth considered this. It was ancient history, barely remembered. "Legend says our ancestors found the principles in ruins on our homeworld. Ancient structures left by some unknown precursor race." Dr. Chen stopped walking and turned to face him. "Not unknown, Commander, just forgotten." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating displays showing star maps that covered the entire galaxy. But these weren't current maps. They showed stellar positions from millions of years ago. Seth recognized several systems, but their stars were in completely different positions. "This is a historical archive," Dr. Chen explained. "It documents the early expansion of our civilization across the galaxy. Back when the stars were young and most worlds were still forming." Zeth studied the displays with growing horror. The maps showed a vast network of colonies, trade routes, and terraforming projects spanning every corner of the galaxy. At the center of it all was a small blue-green world marked with symbols that his translation systems rendered as origin and home. "You're claiming that humans, that Earth, colonized the galaxy millions of years ago?" "Not claiming, Commander. Documenting." Dr. Chen touched one of the displays, and it zoomed in on a familiar star system. "Korthus Prime, third planet of a yellow star. Originally designated as Colony Site 7847. We terraformed it about 4 million years ago." The display showed Zeth's homeworld, but not as he knew it. This version was covered in vast cities, orbital rings, and terraforming equipment. Primitive life forms were being guided through accelerated evolution in massive biological laboratories. "That's impossible," Zeth breathed. "Our species evolved naturally on Korthus Prime. We have fossil records going back millions of years." "Guided evolution, not natural," Dr. Chen corrected gently. "We seeded hundreds of worlds with life, then carefully nudged certain species toward intelligence and technological development. It was a grand experiment in biological diversity." Another display showed the Voidling homeworld, where primitive energy beings were being taught to manipulate dimensional barriers. A third showed the early hive queens learning collective consciousness techniques in vast educational complexes. Zeth felt his worldview shattering. "But why? Why seed the galaxy with life only to withdraw and let us develop on our own?" Dr. Chen's expression grew sad. "Because we made a terrible mistake. In our arrogance, we thought we could control everything. We created the perfect galactic civilization, with every species playing their assigned role. It was beautiful, ordered, and completely sterile." They walked through another corridor, this one filled with images of a golden age, billions of species working together, massive projects that moved stars and created new worlds, technology that bordered on magic. It was a utopia beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could imagine. "What happened?" Zeth asked. "We grew bored," Dr. Chen said simply. "Perfect order meant no surprises, no growth, no real achievement. We had become gods, but gods who had nothing left to discover. So we made a choice." The displays around them changed, showing the systematic withdrawal of human presence from across the galaxy. Advanced technology was hidden or destroyed. Colonies were abandoned. The great works were buried or camouflaged. "We stepped back and let you all develop naturally. We wanted to see what you would become without our guidance, what new ideas, new cultures, new technologies you might develop that we never thought of." "And have we disappointed you?" Zeth asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. Dr. Chen smiled. "Quite the opposite. The Korthani mastery of crystalline technology, far beyond anything we achieved. The Voidlings' dimensional phasing. We never even attempted such things. The Hive Queen's collective consciousness networks, absolutely brilliant innovations. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the desert, but now Zeth could see that it wasn't empty at all. His enhanced vision, activated by the complex's systems, revealed a bustling metropolis hidden beneath sophisticated camouflage. Millions of humans moved through advanced streets, traveled in vehicles that bent space-time, and worked with technology that made his own ship look primitive. You've been watching us, Zeth realized. This whole time you've been watching our development. Of course. You're our children in a sense. We're proud of what you've all accomplished. Dr. Chen paused, though we are somewhat concerned about the current situation. What situation? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. The approaching crisis that your Galactic Council hasn't detected yet. It's why we decided it was time to reveal ourselves. You're going to need our help. Zeth's mind reeled as he tried to process everything he had learned. His species, his entire civilization, was essentially an experiment conducted by these seemingly primitive humans. The thought should have filled him with rage, but instead he felt a strange sense of awe. What crisis? He managed to ask, his voice barely steady. Dr. Chen gestured, and the air around them filled with holographic displays showing deep space. At first, Zeth saw nothing unusual, just the normal scatter of stars and cosmic dust. Then his trained eye began to notice the anomalies. Dark zones, he whispered. Entire star systems going silent. 17 sectors in the outer rim have gone completely dark in the past 6 months, Dr. Chen confirmed. No communications, no energy signatures, no life signs. Your Galactic Council has noticed some of these disappearances but dismissed them as equipment failures or natural phenomena. Zeth's crystalline form dimmed as he absorbed this information. The Council monitors the outer territories, but those regions are sparsely populated. If entire systems are vanishing, it's not natural and it's not random, Dr. Chen said grimly. The pattern of disappearances follows a deliberate progression, moving inward toward the galactic core where all your civilizations have established themselves. The displays shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with the dark zones highlighted in ominous red. Zeth could see the pattern now. Whatever was causing this was systematically working its way through inhabited space. What could possibly destroy entire star systems without leaving any trace? He asked. Something we hoped was extinct, Dr. Chen replied. Something we fought long ago and thought we had defeated. We call them the Devourers. The name sent a chill through Zeth's systems. Devourers? What are they? A species from outside this galaxy, Dr. Chen explained. They consume not just matter and energy but space-time itself. They leave behind nothing, not empty space, not even vacuum, just absence. New displays materialized showing ancient battles that dwarfed anything in recorded galactic history. Massive fleets of human ships engaged creatures that defied description, writhing masses of darkness that seemed to eat reality itself. Entire solar systems were consumed in moments, leaving behind voids that hurt to look at. This was over 4 million years ago, Dr. Chen continued. We thought we had driven them back to the intergalactic void, but apparently, some of them have been hiding in the dark spaces between galaxies, slowly recovering their strength. Zeth watched in horror as the recordings showed human worlds being consumed. Even with their advanced technology, the humans in the recordings struggled against these entities. How did you defeat them before? At great cost, Dr. Chen said quietly. We lost entire fleets, entire worlds. In the end, we had to use weapons that, well, let's say they were so devastating that we chose to bury the technology afterward. We swore never to build such things again. But you could rebuild them now? To fight these Devourers? Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. We could. But such weapons would be dangerous to every living thing in the galaxy. The cure might be worse than the disease. That's why we need help. Help? Zeth laughed bitterly. What help could we possibly provide? You've just shown me that our most advanced technology is primitive compared to yours. You're thinking like a young species, Dr. Chen chided gently. In the millions of years since we withdrew, your civilizations have developed in ways we never imagined. The Krathani crystalline matrices can focus energy in patterns we never achieved. The voidling dimensional technology could provide new defensive possibilities. The Hive Queen's collective processing power might be the key to coordinating a galactic defense. Zeth considered this. You're saying that by limiting yourselves, by withdrawing, you actually lost capabilities? Exactly. We became too focused on perfection, too rigid in our thinking. Your species developed solutions to problems we never even considered. Fresh perspectives, innovative approaches. That's what we need now. Suddenly, Zeth's communication device erupted with urgent signals from his ship. Commander, His science officer's voice was filled with panic. "We're detecting massive energy surges throughout the outer rim. Multiple star systems just disappeared. And sir, something's jamming our hyperspace communications. We can't reach the Galactic Council." Dr. Chen's expression grew grim. "It's beginning. They've detected the advanced technology signatures from our revelation. The Devourers always strike first at the most technologically advanced targets." "How long do we have?" Seth asked. "Based on their previous patterns, maybe weeks before they reach the core worlds. Less if they've grown stronger during their exile." Dr. Chen turned to him with an intensity that made his crystals resonate. "Commander, I need you to make a choice. You can return to your ship, flee to the galactic core, and warn the Council. They probably won't believe you until it's too late, but you could try. Or you stay and help us prepare Earth's defenses while we work on contacting the other species directly. But if you stay, you'll see things that will completely change how you view the universe. There's no going back from that knowledge." Seth looked out over the hidden city, watching humans move with technology that made his civilization look like children playing with toys. Then he thought about his homeworld, about the billions of Korthani who had no idea what was coming for them. "What exactly would you need me to do?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Help us wake up our sleeping guardians." "Guardians?" "The automated defense systems we left behind when we withdrew. They've been dormant for millions of years, hidden throughout the galaxy disguised as natural phenomena. Black holes that aren't quite black holes, neutron stars with unusual properties, ancient artifacts that your species have been studying without realizing their true purpose." Zeth's mind raced. "The crystal caves of Korthus. Our scientists have been studying them for centuries. They're perfectly geometric structures inside our planet's core, but they don't match any known natural process." "Planetary defense nodes," Dr. Chen confirmed. "Every world we seeded has them. But they require specific activation codes and the right technological interfaces. That's where you come in." "Me?" "Your crystalline matrix technology is the key to interfacing with the Korthani defense systems. The Voidling's dimensional abilities can activate the phase shift networks. Each species has developed the exact tools needed to awaken their world's defenses." Zeth felt a strange sense of destiny settling over him. "You planned this. Even when you withdrew, you planned for this possibility." "We hoped it would never be necessary," Dr. Chen said. "But yes, we prepared contingencies. The real question is whether your species will accept the truth and work together, or whether old prejudices and political divisions will doom you all." Before Zeth could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Dr. Chen's expression went pale as she checked a readout on her device. "What is it?" Zeth asked. "Long-range sensors are detecting Devourer scouts in the next spiral arm. They're moving faster than we expected." She looked up at him with urgent eyes. "Commander, we're out of time for gradual revelations. I need to ask you to do something that goes against everything your culture teaches about proper chain of command." "What?" "Contact your ship and tell them to immediately begin broadcasting a message on all Galactic Council emergency frequencies. Tell every species to look for ancient structures on their homeworlds, caves, unusual geological formations, anything that doesn't fit natural patterns. Tell them these structures need to be activated using their most advanced technology. They'll think I've lost my mind. Probably. But if even a few species take the warning seriously and begin the activation process, we might have a chance." Dr. Chen's voice grew urgent. "And tell them that representatives from Earth will be arriving at their homeworlds within the next 72 hours to provide assistance." "Arriving how?" "You just admitted you've hidden your technology for millions of years." Dr. Chen's smile was both sad and terrifying. "Commander, we never said we didn't maintain our capabilities. We just chose not to use them. But when the galaxy faces extinction, choices like that become luxuries we can't afford." Above them, the sky began to shimmer and bend. Massive shapes became visible as camouflage fields deactivated. Ships that dwarfed Zeth's dreadnought hanging silently in Earth's atmosphere. Not just ships, but mobile space stations, orbital weapons platforms, and structures that defied classification. "Welcome," Dr. Chen said quietly, "to humanity's true face." Zeth stood on the observation deck of Dr. Chen's transport ship, watching his own massive dreadnought look like a child's toy beside the human vessels. The Star Crusher, which had been the pride of the Korthani fleet, seemed almost quaint compared to the sleek craft that now surrounded it. "Beginning transmission," Dr. Chen announced from the command center. "All galactic emergency frequencies are now open. Zeth activated his communicator with trembling appendages. His entire worldview had been shattered and rebuilt in the span of a few hours, and now he was about to deliver news that would shock every civilization in the galaxy. "This is Commander Zeth of the Korthani Empire," he began, his voice carrying across space to countless worlds. "I am transmitting from Earth under Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. All Galactic Council members must implement immediate defensive measures." The responses came quickly, flooding the communication channels with confusion and disbelief. "Commander Zeth," came the crystalline voice of General Vex from Korthis Prime. "Your ship's transponder shows you at Earth, but your message is being broadcast with technology signatures we don't recognize. Explain your status." "General, listen carefully," Zeth replied. "Every homeworld in the galaxy contains ancient defense structures left by a precursor civilization. These structures must be activated immediately, using our most advanced crystalline matrix technology. Look for the geometric formations in our planet's core, the crystal caves we've studied for centuries. Have you suffered some kind of mental breakdown?" General Vex's tone was sharp with concern. "The crystal caves are geological formations, not alien technology." Before Zeth could respond, High Counselor Nexara of the Voidlings phased into the communication stream. "Commander Zeth, this is highly irregular. You bypass Council protocol and make claims about precursor civilizations? The Voidlings demand explanation." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying an authority that somehow translated across all the different alien communication systems. "High Counselor, this is Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth. I believe your people have discovered unusual dimensional rifts in the deep caverns of your homeworld. Rifts that appear artificial but serve no apparent function." There was a long pause before Nexara responded, her voice uncertain. "How could you know about the deep sanctums?" "Those are classified Voidling sacred sites." "Because we built them," Dr. Chen said simply. 4 million years ago, when we first guided your species toward dimensional manipulation abilities. They're not sacred sites, they're defensive installations." The communication channels erupted in chaos as representatives from dozens of species all began talking at once. Accusations of deception, demands for proof, and expressions of outrage filled the void of space. Silence. The voice that cut through the chaos belonged to Supreme Chancellor Morgoth of the Ethereal Conclave. "Dr. Chen of Earth, you make extraordinary claims. Provide extraordinary evidence." Dr. Chen nodded to someone off-screen, and suddenly every communication device in the galaxy received a data packet. Zeth watched the readings on his own instruments as terabytes of information flooded the networks. Star charts, archaeological data, genetic analyses, and historical records that spanned millions of years. "The evidence is now in your hands," Dr. Chen announced. "But while you analyze it, we have a more immediate crisis. Scan your long-range sensors for the Outer Rim territories. Check the dark zones that have been appearing." Across the galaxy, sensor arrays turned toward the outer reaches of their territory. The reports that came back carried a growing note of panic. "Sector 7 Alpha is gone," reported a Mollusk Confederation observer. "Not destroyed, gone. There's nothing there where 3 star systems should be." "Confirmed," added a Titan breed deep space monitor. "Multiple sectors showing complete absence of matter. No debris, no radiation, no gravitational signatures." Queen Mother Zis of the Hive clicked her mandibles in agitation. "The collective has lost contact with 17 outer colonies in the past day. We assumed communication failures, but it's accelerating," Dr. Chen said grimly. "The Devourers are moving faster than we anticipated. They've had millions of years to adapt and grow stronger." "Devourers?" Chancellor Morgoth's voice carried ancient fear. "You speak of entities from the deep myths, stories told to frighten young ones." "Not myths," Dr. Chen replied. "Historical records. And they're not just destroying your outer territories, they're coming for the core worlds. Every inhabited planet, every space station, every living thing in this galaxy." On Korthis Prime, General Vex was already mobilizing exploration teams to the crystal caves despite his skepticism. The geometric formations that Korthani scientists had studied for generations were being approached, with new scanning equipment and crystalline interface matrices. "General," came the excited voice of Chief Scientist Drax. "These formations are responding to our crystalline resonance. The patterns are shifting, aligning themselves with our technology matrix." Similar discoveries were being made across the galaxy. On the Voidling homeworld, Ancient dimensional rifts were beginning to pulse with energy as the species' best phase shift specialists investigated them. The Titan breed found massive stone formations deep in their planet's crust that resonated with their biomechanical interfaces, but not all the responses were cooperative. "This is preposterous," declared Ambassador Krell of the Serpentine Dominion. "We refuse to participate in this elaborate hoax." "The Serpentines will not be manipulated by human trickery." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but Zeth noticed her hands tighten slightly. "Ambassador Krell, I understand your skepticism, but I'm now transmitting the current location of your outer colony on Serpentis 7th. There was a pause before Krell's voice returned, notably less confident. "Our sensors show nothing. The entire system is gone." "Because you waited too long to investigate your defensive systems," Dr. Chen said sadly. "The Devourers reached Serpentis 7th 4 hours ago. The communication channels fell silent. The loss of an entire star system, confirmed by multiple independent sensors, drove home the reality of the threat in a way that words could not." High Counselor Nexara was the first to speak again, her voice subdued. "Dr. Chen, the Voidlings are detecting massive energy buildups in our deep sanctums. Our phase shift specialists report that the rifts are responding to their abilities, but the scale of energy involved is beyond our experience. That's because they're designed to tap into dimensional energy streams that your species hasn't discovered yet," Dr. Chen explained. "The defensive systems require not just activation, but coordination across multiple dimensions and species. Each world's defenses are only one part of a galaxy-wide network." Queen Mother Zis spoke up, excitement in her voice. "The collective has activated the crystal formations in our deepest hives. The resonance patterns are connecting our colonies across space. We can feel the network awakening." "Excellent," Dr. Chen said. "Each successful activation makes the others stronger. The network was designed to be self-reinforcing once enough nodes come online." General Vex reported from Corthus Prime. "Dr. Chen, our crystal caves are now fully active, but we're detecting something else, massive structures rising from deep underground. They appear to be weapons platforms, planetary defense batteries," Dr. Chen confirmed. "Each world has them, tailored to the local species' technological strengths. Yours utilize crystalline energy focusing on a scale your scientists have only theorized about. Across the galaxy, ancient systems were awakening. Weapons that had slept for millions of years began to stir. Defensive networks that spanned multiple dimensions started to synchronize their operations. But even as hope began to spread, the Devourers' advance continued. More systems went dark, their disappearance marked only by the growing void they left behind. "Dr. Chen," Zeth said quietly, "will it be enough? Even with all these defenses, can we really stop something that destroyed entire civilizations millions of years ago?" Dr. Chen looked out at the growing fleet of human ships that were materializing throughout the solar system. "Commander, last time we fought the Devourers, we did it alone. This time we have something we didn't have before." "What's that?" "Children who grew up to be stronger than their parents." Her smile was fierce and proud. "You're all about to show us capabilities we never imagined. The Devourers are expecting to face the same static defenses they encountered before. They have no idea what a galaxy full of innovative, determined species can accomplish when they work together." High above them, more human ships continued to decloak, but now they were joined by vessels from other species. Korthani crystalline dreadnoughts, voidling phase ships, Titan breed biomechanical fortresses, and craft from dozens of other civilizations were converging on strategic positions throughout the galaxy. The real war was about to begin. Where a massive Devourer force had materialized near the mining colonies of the Tertius system, Zeth stood on the bridge of Dr. Chen's flagship, watching the tactical displays with fascination and growing dread. "Visual contact in 10 seconds, announced the human tactical officer, her fingers dancing over controls that responded to thought as much as touch. When the main screen activated, Zeth felt his crystalline matrix dim with horror. The Devourers were nothing like the ancient recordings had shown. 4 million years of evolution in the dark spaces between galaxies had changed them into something far more terrifying. Where the historical records showed writhing masses of darkness, these new entities appeared as geometric impossibilities, shapes that hurt to look at directly, structures that existed in more dimensions than normal space could contain. They moved through reality like wounds in the fabric of existence itself, leaving trails of absolute nothingness behind them. They've adapted, Dr. Chen said grimly. They've learned to manipulate space-time more efficiently. Look at how they're moving. Instead of consuming space gradually as they had millions of years ago, these devourers were folding reality around themselves, creating pockets of non-existence that expanded outward like bubbles of pure void. Entire asteroids simply ceased to exist as the effect washed over them. Allied fleet status? Dr. Chen called out. Korthani battle group holding position at coordinates 7 Mark 4, came the response. Voidling phase ships dispersed throughout local dimensional space. Titan breed fortress ships anchored at heavy gravity points. All planetary defense networks are online and synchronized. Zeth watched the Allied formations with amazement. His own people's crystalline ships gleamed like living jewels, their hulls focusing vast amounts of energy into precisely controlled beams. The voidling vessels flickered in and out of visible dimensions, creating a defensive perimeter that existed in multiple phases of reality simultaneously. The massive Titan breed ships sat like immovable mountains in space, their biomechanical hulls growing weapon systems in real time to match the developing threat, and holding it all together were the human ships, sleek vessels that seemed to exist slightly outside normal spacetime, coordinating the defensive effort with technology that made everything else look primitive. Devourers are beginning their assault pattern, the tactical officer reported. They're targeting the Korthani heavy cruiser Stellar Pride. Zeth watched in horror as one of his people's finest ships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, it was there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind not even debris or energy signatures. Return fire, he commanded instinctively. Belay that order, Dr. Chen said calmly. Watch and learn, Commander. The Korthani fleet's response was immediate and devastating. Instead of conventional energy weapons, they focused their crystalline technology into something Zeth had never seen before. Beams of pure crystallized space-time that struck the Devourers and seemed to anchor them in normal reality. Brilliant, Dr. Chen murmured admiringly. Your people found a way to lock them into stable dimensional coordinates. We never thought of that approach. The crystalline anchoring beams held the Devourers in place long enough for the voidling phase ships to attack. They materialized inside the enemy formations, using their dimensional manipulation abilities to create localized reality storms that disrupted the Devourers' void generation abilities. But the enemy adapted quickly. The geometric impossibilities began to shift and change, developing new configurations that resisted the crystalline anchoring. Some of them started to phase shift themselves, matching the voidlings' dimensional manipulations. They're learning from our attacks, Zeth observed with growing alarm. Of course they are, Dr. Chen replied. That's what makes them so dangerous. But they're not the only ones who can adapt. She activated a communication channel to the Titan breed commanders. Fortress Group Alpha, implement biomechanical evolution protocol. Show them something they've never seen before. The massive Titan breed ships began to transform before Zeth's eyes. Their biomechanical hulls rippled and flowed, growing new structures and weapons in real time. But instead of conventional armaments, they were developing something unprecedented, living weapons that could think and adapt independently. Swarms of biomechanical fighters erupted from the fortress ships, each one capable of evolving new capabilities within minutes of encountering a threat. When the Devourers tried to consume them, the fighters split into smaller units. When void fields were deployed, the bioweapons grew reality-anchoring organs. Incredible, Zeth breathed. They're creating an arms race in real time. And that's just the beginning, Dr. Chen said. Watch what happens when we coordinate all these approaches. The human ships moved into position and suddenly the entire battlefield transformed. The crystalline anchoring beams, voidling phase shifts, and biomechanical adaptations began to work together in ways that none of the individual species could have achieved alone. Human vessels coordinated the attacks, their advanced sensors predicting devourer movements and positioning the Allied forces for maximum effect. Korthani crystalline technology created stable platforms that allowed voidling phase ships to anchor their dimensional attacks. Titan breed bioweapons evolved specifically to exploit weaknesses revealed by human sensor analysis. For the first time in the battle, devourers began to fall. Not consumed by void, actually destroyed, their impossible geometries collapsing into normal space before dissipating into quantum foam. We're winning, Zeth said. Hardly believing it, this battle, yes, Dr. Chen agreed. But look at the strategic display. Zeth's elation faded as he saw the larger picture. While they were fighting one devourer force at Tertius, 3 more had materialized at other points around the galaxy. Entire sectors were going dark faster than the Allied forces could respond. There are too many of them, he realized. And they're coordinating their attacks now. Yes, Dr. Chen said grimly. They've learned to work together more effectively than they did millions of years ago. But so have we. She activated another communication channel, this one reaching across the entire galaxy. All Allied forces, this is command. Implement Protocol Omega. It's time to show the Devourers what 4 million years of innovation looks like. Across the galaxy, the ancient planetary defense networks that had been awakening began to synchronize not just with each other, but with the fleets in space. The result was something unprecedented in galactic history. A unified defense grid that combined the strengths of dozens of different species into a single, coordinated response. On Corthys Prime, the crystal caves began generating energy fields that enhanced crystalline technology throughout the local star cluster. Voidling homeworlds' dimensional rifts opened stable passages that allowed instant fleet movement across vast distances. Titan breed worlds became biological factories, pumping out adapted defensive organisms faster than any conventional shipyard. And at the center of it all, Earth revealed its true nature. The planet that had appeared primitive and underdeveloped transformed before the galaxy's sensors. Massive orbital structures uncloaked, revealing a defensive network that dwarfed anything any other species had built. The planet itself seemed to come alive, its electromagnetic field reaching out to coordinate defensive efforts across light years of space. By the core, Zeth whispered, Earth isn't just a planet. It's a command and control center for the entire galaxy. Always has been, Dr. Chen confirmed. We built it that way from the beginning. Every world we seeded, every species we guided, every defensive system we installed, all of it reports back to Earth's central coordination matrix. The battle at Tertius was now just one small part of a galaxy-wide conflict. Zeth watched as Devourer forces found themselves facing coordinated resistance on every front. Each time they adapted to one species' technology, they were hit by innovations from another. When they developed counters to individual approaches, they faced completely new combinations they had never encountered. But the Devourers weren't helpless. As the battle progressed, Zeth began to see disturbing new developments. Some of the enemy forces were beginning to merge with each other, creating larger, more complex entities that could resist multiple types of attack simultaneously. Dr. Chen, he said urgently, they're evolving too. Look at Grid 7. On the tactical display, several Devourer units had combined into something that looked like a living black hole, a sphere of absolute darkness that consumed everything around it while somehow remaining mobile and directed. That's new, Dr. Chen admitted, concern creeping into her voice. We never saw them capable of that level of coordination before. The merged Devourer entity began moving toward the heavily populated Centris system, home to billions of beings from multiple species. The Allied forces in the area concentrated their fire, but their attacks seemed to have no effect on the massive void sphere. It's too strong, reported the local fleet commander. All weapons ineffective. The entity is consuming our energy attacks and growing larger. Dr. Chen's hands moved over her controls with increasing urgency. All units implement emergency withdrawal from Centris. Evacuate all civilian populations immediately. You're abandoning an entire star system? Seth asked in shock. Sometimes retreat is the only. The Prometheus weapon fired across 11 dimensions simultaneously, creating a cascade of reality dissolution that spread outward from the merged Devourer entity. Zeth watched in horrified fascination as space-time itself began to unravel in the Centris system. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive void sphere that had been consuming everything in its path suddenly found itself being unmade at the quantum level. Its impossible geometry collapsed, its dimensional anchors dissolved, and for a brief moment, it existed in a state of pure conceptual uncertainty, before winking out of existence entirely. But the weapon didn't stop there. Dr. Chen, came an urgent voice from the tactical station. The dissolution field is expanding beyond target parameters. It's beginning to affect normal matter. Zeth watched in horror as the edges of the Centris system's asteroid belt began to dissolve into quantum foam. Moons became translucent, then transparent, then simply weren't there anymore. Emergency containment protocols, Dr. Chen ordered, her voice tight with controlled panic. Deploy dimensional anchors immediately. Across the galaxy, human ships moved with desperate speed to contain the expanding field of dissolution. Reality anchor devices materialized from hyperspace, creating stable zones that prevented the weapon's effect from spreading further. But the damage was already done. An entire star system had been rendered uninhabitable, its very space-time too unstable to support matter or energy. This is why we buried these weapons, Dr. Chen said quietly, staring at the tactical display. Victory achieved through the annihilation of everything we're trying to protect. But their momentary success had consequences beyond the immediate destruction. Across the galaxy, the Devourer forces began to change their behavior patterns. Instead of attacking individually or in small groups, they started converging on specific points, merging into larger and larger entities. They're adapting to our new threat level, observed Queen Mother Zis over the communication link. The collective senses fear in their movements, but also determination. They understand now that we possess weapons capable of unmaking them entirely, which means they'll escalate in response. General Vex added from Corthus Prime. If they can create entities large enough and stable enough to survive reality dissolution, they'll become unstoppable. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. That's exactly what they're doing. Look at the convergence patterns. The tactical display showed Devourer forces from across 3 spiral arms moving toward a single point. In deep space, a region between galaxies where normal matter was scarce but dark energy. Concentrations were unusually high. They're building something, Zeth realized. Something big enough to absorb a Prometheus weapon and survive. Worse than that, Dr. Chen corrected. They're building something big enough to consume an entire galaxy in one pass. If they succeed in creating a merged entity of that scale, there won't be anywhere left to run. High Counselor Nexara phased into the communication stream, her voice carrying dimensional echoes of fear. The Voidlings detect massive distortions in space-time around the convergence point. The very fabric of reality is being restructured. How long until convergence is complete? Dr. Chen asked. Based on current movement patterns, came the calculated response from a Hive Queen collective. Approximately 18 standard hours. Then we have 18 hours to stop them, Dr. Chen said. But conventional weapons won't work against something that size. Even our Prometheus protocols might not be sufficient. Zeth studied the tactical displays, watching the streams of Devourer entities moving toward their convergence point, like dark rivers flowing toward a cosmic drain. What about all of us together? Every ship, every defensive platform, every technological innovation our species have developed? It might not be enough, Dr. Chen admitted. But there is one option we haven't considered. What's that? The Titan breed biomechanical evolution capabilities gave me an idea. What if instead of trying to destroy the merged entity, we try to change it? Queen Mother Zis's voice buzzed with interest. Biological conversion? The collective has theoretical frameworks for consciousness, transfer across different substrates, and the Voidling's dimensional manipulation could provide the delivery mechanism, added Nexara. General, Vex's crystalline voice carried skepticism. You're talking about attempting to convert a planet-sized entity that exists to consume reality. That's beyond theoretical, it's fantasy. No, Dr. Chen said slowly. It's evolution. The Devourers aren't inherently evil. They're a species driven by an imperative to consume because that's how they survive. But what if we could change that fundamental drive? Into what? Zeth asked. Into something constructive. The same capabilities that allow them to unmake reality could be used to create it. Imagine Devourers that build instead of destroy, that add complexity to the universe, instead of reducing it to nothing. The communication channels fell silent as representatives from across the galaxy contemplated this unprecedented idea. The technological requirements would be staggering, observed a Mollusk Confederation scientist. We would need to coordinate biological sciences, dimensional manipulation, consciousness transfer, reality anchoring, and quantum consciousness engineering on a scale never before attempted. We have 18 hours, Dr. Chen said, and we have the combined knowledge of species that have spent millions of years developing different approaches to these problems. If there was ever a time for galactic cooperation on an impossible scale, this is it. The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, every advanced laboratory, research station, and experimental facility began working on different aspects of the conversion protocol. Titan breed bioengineers developed consciousness transfer mechanisms. Voidling dimensional specialists created delivery systems that could penetrate the merged entity's reality distortion fields. Corthani crystalline scientists designed quantum consciousness anchors that could survive in 11-dimensional space. And at the center of it all, human coordination systems managed the flow of information and resources, ensuring that discoveries made on one world were immediately shared with research teams throughout the galaxy. Dr. Chen, Seth said as he watched the collaborative effort unfold, "I'm beginning to understand something. This wasn't just about defending against the Devourers, was it?" "What do you mean?" "The way you seeded the galaxy, the specific technologies you guided each species toward, the defensive systems you built, you weren't just preparing for war. You were preparing for this moment, for the possibility that we might have to save our enemies instead of destroying them." Dr. Chen's smile was sad but proud. "We learned something important during our first war with the Devourers. Victory through annihilation isn't really victory at all. It's just a temporary pause before the next threat emerges. But victory through transformation, through finding a way to convert destruction into creation, that might actually be permanent. You've been planning this for 4 million years." "We've been hoping for it," she corrected. "Planning implies certainty. We hoped that when the time came, our children would be wise enough and capable enough to find a solution we couldn't imagine." The countdown continued as research teams across the galaxy made breakthrough after breakthrough. The biomechanical conversion protocols took shape. Dimensional delivery systems were tested and refined. Consciousness anchoring techniques were developed and calibrated. But as the 18th hour approached, long-range sensors revealed the true scope of what they were facing. The merged Devourer entity was larger than anyone had imagined. Not planet-sized, but approaching stellar mass. It existed simultaneously in 17 different dimensions and was beginning to generate its own gravitational field that was distorting space-time. Throughout the local galactic cluster, "Final preparations," Dr. Chen announced to the galaxy. "All ships to positions. All planetary defenses to maximum output. This is going to require every scrap of energy we can generate." Seth took his position at the tactical station, coordinating Corthani fleet movements with the larger strategy. Around him, the bridge of the human flagship hummed with activity as representatives from dozens of species worked together to manage the most complex military operation in galactic history. "Dr. Chen," he said quietly, "what happens if this doesn't work?" She looked out at the tactical display showing the massive Devourer entity, beginning to move toward the galactic core. "Then we fall back to the Prometheus protocols and hope we can destroy it before it consumes everything we've ever cared about. But I have faith in our children, Commander. You've all exceeded our wildest expectations." "Conversion. Protocol ready for deployment," announced the Chief Science Officer. "All fleets report ready," added the Tactical Coordinator. "Planetary defense networks synchronized and standing by," called out the Communications Officer. Dr. Chen took a deep breath. "This is it. Either we're about to witness the greatest transformation in galactic history, or we're about to watch everything end. All units execute conversion protocol on my mark." She paused, looking around at the beings from dozens of different species working together on her bridge. Representatives of civilizations that had been strangers and potential enemies just days before, now united in a desperate attempt to save not just themselves but their enemies as well. "Mark." Seth watched in amazement as the coordinated effort of the entire galaxy focused on the massive Devourer entity. Streams of consciousness-altering energy, guided by voidling dimensional manipulation, penetrated the creature's reality distortion fields. Biomechanical conversion factors developed by Titan breed scientists began to interact with the entity's fundamental structure. Corthani crystalline anchors provided stable reference points that prevented the conversion process from destabilizing local spacetime. For the first few minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The stellar mass entity continued its inexorable approach toward the galactic core, its gravitational field pulling in dark matter and cosmic dust that simply ceased to exist upon contact. "Conversion fields are not taking hold," reported the science officer. The entity's consumption imperative is too deeply embedded in its quantum structure. Increase power to all conversion arrays, Dr. Chen ordered. Redirect energy from planetary defense networks if necessary. Across the galaxy, every available power source was channeled into the conversion effort. Entire star systems dimmed, as their energy output was focused on the impossible task of changing the fundamental nature of a creature that existed to unmake reality. Then something unexpected happened. Dr. Chen, came Queen Mother Ziss's voice over the communication link. The collective is detecting response patterns from within the entity. It's trying to communicate. What? Zeth leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. How is that possible? The consciousness transfer protocols, Dr. Chen said with growing excitement. They're working, but not in the way we expected. Instead of changing the entity's imperative, we've awakened something that was already there, individual consciousness within the collective mass. The tactical displays began showing complex patterns of energy movement within the devourer entity. Instead of the chaotic void generation that had characterized its approach, the patterns showed organization, structure, even what looked like internal communication. It's fighting itself, observed General Vex from his position with the Korthani fleet. Part of it still wants to consume, but another part is resisting. Dr. Chen activated the long-range communication array. Unknown entity. This is Dr. Sarah Chen representing the Galactic Alliance. If you can understand us, please respond. The reply came not in words but in images transmitted directly into their consciousness. Zeth saw flashes of memory, ancient civilizations in distant galaxies being consumed not out of malice but out of desperate hunger. He felt the crushing loneliness of beings who could only survive by destroying everything they encountered. And underneath it all, he sensed a profound weariness with endless consumption and destruction. We remember, came a voice that seemed to speak from the quantum foam itself. We remember what we were before hunger consumed us, before the great emptiness drove us to devour. We remember choice. You have a choice now, Dr. Chen responded. Our conversion protocols have given you the ability to create instead of destroy. You can choose a different path. The massive entity had stopped moving toward the galactic core. The gravitational distortions around it began to stabilize, and for the first time since the crisis began, the void fields that had been consuming everything in their path started to fade. Show us, the voice requested. Show us how to build instead of unmake. What followed was the most extraordinary cooperation in galactic history. The combined knowledge of dozens of species was transmitted to the transformed devourer entity. Not just technical specifications, but philosophical concepts about creation, beauty, and the value of diversity. The entity's response was immediate and spectacular. Instead of consuming the cosmic dust and dark matter around it, it began to organize them into new structures. Asteroids formed from raw materials that had been floating in the void for billions of years. Complex crystalline formations appeared in space, their geometric patterns reflecting mathematical principles that no galactic species had ever discovered. It's learning, Zeth said in wonderment. In hours, it's mastering techniques that took our civilizations millennia to develop. But the most amazing transformation was yet to come. The massive entity began to divide itself, not through destruction but through conscious choice. Smaller entities emerged from the stellar mass creature, each one retaining the ability to create but operating on a scale that wouldn't destabilize local spacetime. We can be many, the voice explained. Many small builders instead of one great consumer. We can spread creation throughout the dark spaces between galaxies, bringing life and complexity where before there was only emptiness. One of the smaller entities approached Earth's solar system, moving with careful precision to avoid disrupting the planetary orbits. When it arrived, its form had stabilized into something beautiful, a crystalline structure the size of a small moon, pulsing with creative energy that made the space around it shimmer with possibility. We would like to learn more, the entity communicated, to understand how consciousness can choose construction over consumption. Will you teach us? Dr. Chen looked around the bridge at the representatives from dozens of species, all of whom nodded their agreement. We would be honored to share what we've learned, and perhaps you can teach us things we never imagined. The crisis was over, but its resolution had changed everything. The Galactic Council, which had begun as a loose confederation of independent species, had been transformed by necessity into a true alliance. The cooperation required to save the galaxy from the Devourers had created bonds that went far beyond political treaties. "Commander Zeth," Dr. Chen said as they watched the transformed entities begin their work of creation throughout the galaxy, "I think it's time for humanity to take a more active role in galactic affairs." Zeth's crystalline form brightened with understanding. "No more hiding behind primitive facades?" "No more hiding," she confirmed. "The galaxy has proven it's ready for true partnership. Your species have shown wisdom, innovation, and courage that equals or exceeds our own. It's time we work together as equals." Over the following months, the transformation of galactic civilization continued. The former Devourers, now calling themselves the Builders, began creating wonders throughout the dark spaces between stars. They constructed rest stations for travelers, built bridges of crystallized space-time that allowed instant communication across galactic distances, and began the process of seeding empty regions with the raw materials for new worlds. Human technology, no longer hidden, revolutionized every aspect of galactic life, but more importantly, human philosophy, the idea that former enemies could become allies, that destruction could be transformed into creation, became the foundation for a new age of galactic cooperation. The Korthani developed new, crystalline technologies that could interact directly with builder creations, allowing for unprecedented precision in stellar engineering. The Voidlings used their dimensional abilities to help the Builders access the spaces between realities, opening up entirely new realms for exploration and development. The Titan breed shared their biomechanical evolution techniques, helping the Builders understand how consciousness could shape matter on the quantum level. "Dr. Chen," Zeth said during one of their regular conferences 6 months after the crisis, "I've been thinking about something you said, about how this wasn't just about defending against the Devourers. Oh? You guided our development not just to give us the tools to fight them, but to give us the wisdom to save them. The Korthani focus on crystalline precision, the Voidling exploration of dimensional alternatives, the Titan breed mastery of evolution and adaptation. We each developed exactly the capabilities needed not just for war, but for transformation," Dr. Chen smiled. "It took you long enough to figure that out, Commander. Though to be fair, it took us 4 million years to plan it. But what if it hadn't worked? What if we hadn't been able to find a peaceful solution? Then we would have used the Prometheus protocols and accepted the consequences," she said quietly. "But we had faith that consciousness, given enough time and the right tools, will always choose creation over destruction." The Devourers proved that even the most fundamental imperatives can be changed when beings are given real choice. From his position on the observation deck of the new Galactic Cooperation Center, a massive station built jointly by all species using both traditional technology and builder enhancements, Zeth looked out at a galaxy transformed. Ships from dozens of civilizations traveled along builder-constructed transit lanes that made the journey between distant worlds a matter of hours instead of years. New colonies were being established on worlds that the Builders had created from raw cosmic material. Ancient barriers between species were dissolving as shared challenges required shared solutions. Most remarkably, the galaxy was expanding. With the Builders' help, expeditions were being launched toward other galaxies, carrying the message that transformation was possible, that even the darkest impulses could be redirected toward light. "Commander," came Dr. Chen's voice over his communication device, "we're receiving a signal from the Andromeda expedition. They've made contact with another group of entities similar to the original Devourers." Zeth's crystals brightened with anticipation rather than fear. "Hostile? Unknown. But the Expedi,